What is job costing? Your crews are busy, your jobs are closing, but you don't know if you're making any money. So the top line, the revenue tells you what came in, but job costing tells you what you actually kept. By the end of this video, you're going to know not only what job costing is, but also how to stop running jobs that look like wins, but they're actually draining the bank account. So we work with a lot of contractors, and one young contractor we were working with, 29 years old, he'd worked for a big contracting firm, big commercial contracting firm, decided he wanted to get into residential construction. So he started doing residential remodels and going over, and he was super busy. He got jobs and jobs and jobs, and man, how you doing? Man, I'm busy. I got so much going on. And then about 9 months down the road, once taxes and payroll and all the other things were there, he started to realize that, yeah, he's making money, but he doesn't know if he's keeping money. And that's really what we need to talk about as it relates to job costing. So job costing is not just a good discipline to be able to do, but what it does is it brings you great information, not just to look at the top line. That's the easy number. People will tell us their top line all the time. And sometimes we look back and go, we don't really care. It does help inform to some degree, but the bottom line is we need to know job by job by job. Did that job generate income? Did this job generate income? Because collectively, yeah, they might all be able to, but sometimes you're taking on jobs that are not profitable. And that's what job costing can help you with. So if we take the basic definition of job costing, fundamentally, is this job making money? Then we want to be able to break it down and go, what are the component parts of job costing? So what we've done is we've tried to acronymize everything. It's not a word, by the way, I just made that up. So we want to acronym things so it makes it super easy for you to be able to understand, is this job profitable or is it not profitable? And if it is profitable, how do we get more of these types of jobs? And if it's not profitable, how do we sort of stay away from these? How do we turn these into a non-ideal job and also have an ideal job? See, job costing has a lot of benefits beyond just understanding job profitability. So what's the breakdown of the actual acronym? So we call it the SLIME. Now the I in the middle doesn't mean anything. It just helps us to form the word. That's it. But when we look at SLIME, it's SLME, or subs, labor, material, and equipment. So all jobs fundamentally have those four basic elements when it comes to determining your job cost. Did we generate revenue off this job or not? Well, one of the first things we've got to look at is the subcontractors that we're using. What are those other things, which then ties into the L? That's why we've got these on the front part, subcontractors and labor. So a lot of times in business, people will look at these numbers and go, yeah, that's my overhead. Not really. So we want to separate these into cost of goods sold and overhead. So we know what they say in the accounting world, above the line and below the line. The cost of goods, usually you have your revenue minus your cost of goods will be next, and then all the other expenses, or what we would classify as overhead, below that. Your total revenue minus your cost of goods gets you what a lot of accountants call your gross profit. Now, I'm not a huge fan of that term because there are a lot of people that hear gross profit and think my profit. That's not the truth. That's not the case because you still have overhead, you still have a lot of expenses to pay out of that gross profit. And so Mike McAllowitz actually has a better term, I think it is, called real revenue. So when you take your top line minus your cost of goods or your subcontractors, your labor, your material, and your equipment, and lump all that together, then we have what we call real revenue. Let me give you an example. So if you're a residential home builder, for instance, I know that across the country, 78 to 82% of all dollars that come in top line revenue, so it's at the top, are caught up in what we call cost of goods, subs, labor, material, equipment. And so if that's the case and you've got a $10 million home building company, I want you to listen to this. It's actually a $2 million business. What do I mean by that? Okay, so $10 million came in at the top. That's the big box here. And then once we sucked away, now this box is gonna be a lot bigger for a home builder. So it would look something like this. And then the margin, what's kept out of all this is your real revenue. And so your real revenue out of that is what you can actually run the business. And then there will be a part of that that you can actually carve away as profit. So we look at all this and a lot of people go, contract value, look at all the revenue. God, we're making so much money. This is incredible. Well, it's not that you're making money, it's that you're generating revenue. And then out of the revenue generation, we need to determine, did that job make profit? And if a collection of jobs make profit, then theoretically the whole business makes profit at that point. So a lot of times when we look at our profit and loss statement, which if you're a business owner, you should be looking at your profit and loss statement at least once a month. And in that, there will be that cost code of cost of goods. Well, how do we ensure that that cost of goods line item has integrity, is worth a number being able to take a look at? Well, that's where we go back to our SLIME, subs, labor, material, equipment. And so when we have a proper number on this, that means we're doing proper job costing. We can understand job by job if there's a profitability there. And if you're doing proper job costing, then you can trust the cost of goods number that's on your P&L. So you can start to look at that number that's above the line, and now you can make really good decisions on what's below the line. Let me show you how job costing affects your day-to-day. So think about, hey, I want to hire a new employee. Well, a lot of times what we do is we call it the pulse strategy. Hey, I'm desperate for an employee. I need to hire somebody. And somebody comes and goes, oh, my cousin's unemployed. Why don't you hire them? And so you go over them and go, hey, cousin, my name's Scott. I need to hire somebody. Can you hold out your arm? And they hold out the arm, and then you cover their pulse, and you're like, oh, you're breathing. Great. Come on. And that's you know how we hire, and we just kind of make up the revenue numbers and how much we're going to pay them and all that. Proper job costing allows us for a proper cost of goods, which help us to have a proper expense outlay so we understand actually how much we can invest in people. So we're not just throwing money around because we think that's what we're supposed to do. That's what a lot of contractors do. No. Instead, what we're doing is we're properly looking at how much money is allocated to jobs, therefore how much money can be allocated to the business, and we merge those two things together, and then you want to make sure that there's proper profitability in what you're doing. One final thing I want to tell you, I have a video in the description below that frankly you need to set aside time to go watch. It's called How to Build a Construction Business. There's a link in the description below, and it's a video where I walk you through how to build a system for your construction business. Why is that important? Well, in light of this conversation, there are 4 major P's in every business: purpose, people, process, and profit. You need to understand this because job costing sits within that profit vertical there. Now, if you go watch that video, I'm going to walk you through all of those 4 P's and what we call the 4 core of marketing, sales, ops, and admin. Everything you need to know to run a construction business is going to be in that video below. It's a longer video, but I promise it'll be well worth your time. So if you've got proper job costing, then you understand your numbers, you can take a look at your P&L, and now all of a sudden you know, are we generating income? Are we generating profit off of these jobs? And once you have that, it'll help you start to niche in on the proper jobs that are healthy for your business versus the jobs that you're taking, honestly, just to keep people busy. That is not a winning strategy for growing a business. It's taking jobs on the cheap, taking jobs just to keep your crews busy, that sort of thing. Can you do that from time to time? Yes, but you do not want to make a habit of that. What you want to make a habit of is ensuring that you're getting the right work and making the right margins, and that's where job costing can help you under the understanding of SLIME: subs, labor, material, and equipment. Once you start to properly do this, here's what's going to happen. You're going to slowly start to feel that chaos subside a little bit because much of your chaos comes from that 4th P of profit. And so when we have proper job costing, you're going to start being liberated from that chaos so you can make time for the things that matter most.